Have to get past a Saints team that is arguably playing their most consistent ball of the entire season. We'll look at that matchup, spread, the total, the money line, it all. Plus, we'll break down the Christmas Day games. It's all ahead on Week 16 Pregame PowerUp. Let's go! And with that, we welcome you into another edition of the Pregame Power Up here on DraftKings Network. Hope your holiday season is off to a good start. We're getting close to the big day, just a few days away from Christmas, so make sure your plans are all set. Trey, Wingo here with Claudia. Bellafotto, resplendent in holiday red, I might add.
Well, you looked good too with the pattern, you know.
That was the most insulting thing. You look good too.
You look okay. You could have tried
Patronize. Thank you very much. I'll take the gift. We've got a lot to get to. Marshall Newhouse will join us in a little bit to talk about this game as well as what to expect from the two games on Christmas. And we'll break it all down for you. Stormy Bonatoni will be here in just a few minutes as well. But we got to start with the game tonight, and the Packers at home late in the season, they know how to do this.
Yeah, one of the biggest spreads of the season, top four certainly, opened 13, reopened around 14.5, so past that key number of 14, and I think it comes down to a lot of factors, which we'll dive into, but most of that being not much faith in Spencer Rattler not having Alvin Kamara out of that backfield.
I just want to say you look good too.
Oh, thanks. You know.
You look good too. Okay, we're off to a great start here on the show. All right, she mentioned the spread is big. The Packers are heavy favorites for a variety of reasons that we will get into right now and tell you all about it when you take a look at some of the things. One of the things that's really good for them is the play of their quarterback, Jordan Love. Mm-hmm. Jordan Love has been on this roll late in seasons. The Packers have averaged 32.3 points per game over their last 4 games, and Love has been a big part of it. They say he gets up for these games during these late season stretches, and the numbers absolutely back it up. Take a look at this graphic. In his career, Jordan Love, after week 11 of the regular season, is just a different dude. Not only is his team 11-4, but the Packers are putting up more points. His passing yardage is up. His TD to interception ratio is off the charts, and he has the best passer rating after week 11 in the NFL since 2023. So how is he doing it? Well, here is Jordan Love in his own words with the key to playing so well down the stretch.
No, I think I think you look at how we played last year towards the end, and now I think it's pretty similar. The main thing for me is just taking care of the ball, being smart with it, going out there, finding completions, just continuing to stack those positive plays. I think that's when we're at our best, is when we don't put ourselves in bad positions on offense with those third and longs and some of those just difficult situations to convert on and stay on the field. So I think when we're doing that, we're running the ball well, and guys are just making plays for me on the outside. It makes life easy, but I think the biggest thing is just stacking those positive plays, being efficient, and being able to drive the ball down the field, put up points, and staying out of those tough situations.
He also hasn't been turning over the ball. Love's props tonight right on the averages for completions and attempts, but the book has his passing yard number 14 yards lower than his season average. Maybe a blowout on Store leads to a lot of running in the fourth quarter. And speaking of the spread, Claudia, it's no surprise that the Packers are once again playing well and 2-touchdown favorites. But what do you see for us in the first and trends tonight?
Well, I just hope Spencer Rattler doesn't pay too much attention to the spread because 2 touchdowns is a lot of pressure. That being said, there is some hope. Take a look at the numbers when it comes to the first and trend underdogs. 13 or more points, 7-1-1 against the spread since 2012. Much of the same dating back to 2004, 26, 10-2 are double-digit underdogs. But tonight, pressure's on because the Saints' biggest underdog since 1999. That was Week 14 against the Rams. They lost that one 30-14. Like I said, Spencer Rattler is under center. This team looking a lot different with him under center. Without Derek Carr, it's been ugly. We saw Jake Haener get the start last week, but Rattler ended up relieving him at halftime. And it doesn't really matter, one or the two. No wins for either of them when filling in for Carr. And the other numbers, those aren't good either. A full touchdown plus the 2-pointer, 50 fewer yards a game, and turnovers, those are up too. So without Derek Carr, an uphill battle for the Saints, Trey.
Yeah, no question about that, Claudia. Backup quarterback, and without Alvin Kamara leading the team in rushing and receiving yards, If he ends up as the Saints leader in both categories, he'll be just the third player ever with multiple seasons leading the team in both, joining Lydell Mitchell and Frank Gifford as a couple of names for the past. So how are the Saints going to replace that production? Easy. They won't, but they'll try.
I mentioned Alvin the other day wasn't looking really good. That's the case. He's going to be out as well. And so we'll be out with both those guys for this game. Like I said, Spencer will start, and then running back wise, like we talked about the other day, it'll have to be a committee approach. All those guys are going to get work, and have to pick up the slack for what we're losing there with Alvin. So that's where we're at right now.
So, running back by committee, then Darren Rizzi says Saints just signed Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jamal Williams also in the backfield, but the book's actually expecting Kendre Miller to be the lead back. Miller's total sitting at 12.5 rush attempts, 51.5 rush yards, 2.5 receptions, and 14.5 receiving yards. By comparison, Kamara's average weekly props. So if the usage is the same, may be an advantage, but not if it is a committee back there tonight. And interesting, too, to see Jamal Williams line only at 14.5 attempts, not even up, but 14.5 rush yards if we do see that running back by committee.
It's also interesting. We can talk about the running back, but the quarterback has really been the thing that sort of makes or breaks the Saints season. Sure. Derek Carr is one of those guys, either you love him or you hate him. He's consistently productive. With him under center, the Saints this season are 5-5. They're averaging about 24.5 points per game and 350 yards per game. Haener and Rattler, 0-4, 16 points per game, and under 300 yards per game. So that is a huge swing. No matter what they do with the running back by committee, the quarterback, Carr not being there has been a huge problem. But what do I know about this? We know someone who knows more about this. And I feel like I've sort of cheated her on every introduction this year because I go full...
You do. Give her the wrist.
Well, we need to go back to the VSiN trading floor and find our Stormy Bonatone, who joins us on this pre-Christmas edition of the Pregame PowerUp. So where are the props going, Stormy, with all these issues, what we've seen? Where are we going to get this production for the Saints? Where are the props?
Yeah, I think that bettors largely aren't taking the by committee approach as much, and they do think Kendre Miller is going to be the guy to slot in for Alvin Kamara's usage. Although, to your guys' point, because he's not Alvin Kamara and he doesn't quite warrant the same numbers that an Alvin Kamara would, maybe you're getting a little bit of discount on a handful of these props. For example, in a game like this, Kamara's receptions number might be at like 4.5, but you're getting Kendre Miller at 2.5, so that's a perceived advantage to a bettor. The receiving yards number at 15.5 is lower. We're seeing 96% of the handle, 90% of bets come in on his over receiving yards. The 52.5 rushing yards, not getting a ton of play, but it has ticked up a yard or two. The prop I saw with the biggest difference, though, for Kendre Miller coming into this one, saw a lot of bets, was his anytime touchdown. He opened at plus 320. We're now seeing around plus 150. So for a $100 bettor, that's a $170 difference in profit with how much people are coming in on his anytime touchdown today.
And there's not a bunch of names on that roster you would want to bet to score an anytime touchdown, so I'm sort of surprised at that long number. On the other side, we've talked about Jordan Love and him turning things on late in the season. It's been really tough, I know, because I've done it, to try and decide who he's going to throw the ball to. So I'm done with the wide receiver props. But when it comes to Jordan Love himself, how are people approaching that betting market?
Yeah, we have seen a little bit of over money on his passing yards specifically. Nothing too crazy, though, relatively 50-50 split, but at the 231.5, you are seeing a minus 120 tax on the over there. Where we've seen the more aggressive bets come in, however, are on his over 1.5 passing touchdowns, for example. Around 70% of the action is coming in on that over. And one of the most bet props of the entire game is Jordan Love not to throw a pick today, despite the minus 150 price. And you guys laid out the success that he has had lately in the back end of season, the last 4 games, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions. DraftKings odds makers are actually baiting bettors a little bit to take him to throw an interception, giving you a plus 115 price there.
Well, one of the reasons he may not throw an interception tonight is because Josh Jacobs has been an absolute force on the ground, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But let's talk about where this game is. It's in Green Bay. It's going to be cold. Now, not really cold by Green Bay standards, but nonetheless cold, especially for a dome team from the South coming up to Lambeau Field. So with that in mind, Stormy, are bettors thinking that's going to be the Josh Jacobs game? Is that the play here?
Well, I mean, it has been so often, right? And he has delivered in that case. His prop opened around 89.5 rushing yards, bet up to 92.5. So we are seeing over money there, no question about it. The area, again, though, similar to what I was saying about Kendra Miller, the area people are really betting in on Josh Jacobs is him to get in the end zone, because how profitable has he been for people? He's got 9 touchdowns in the last 5 games, 11 in the last 7. He scored in at least 1 touchdown in all of those games but 1. His anytime touchdown today, minus 300, so it is very expensive, but that is not making bettors shy away from throwing him in their same game parlays or betting it outright. He's also the most bet first touchdown scorer and to have 2+ scores today. So yes, everybody loves Josh Jacobs and hopes he continues to produce against a bad Saints team.
Yeah, 12 rushing touchdowns on the season, plus a receiving touchdown. His 13 total touchdowns for the Packers has already tied the record for the player his first year on the Green Bay Packers with former running back Ahman Green and, of course, Billy Houghton, Claudia, in 1952.
Good company. I think the Packers certainly happy to have him. I'm probably happy to be 14-point favorites tonight. That's top 4. We saw the Ravens as the biggest favorite against the Giants when they were laying 16.5. Although, Stormy, there's no real big edge here because favorites of 14, 2-2 so far this season. How are bettors approaching such a big line like this with a rather low total?
Yeah, it's one of those games where we obviously have seen this tick up, like you said off the top of the show, Claudia, was 13. Has peaked out at the 14.5. Typically, when we've seen it at that hook, there's been a little bit of buyback, and even with the price right now, it's minus 105 on that side of things. But it's largely been one-way traffic on Green Bay. About 68% of the handle, 67% of bets are on that side. But you and I both know a lot of sharp people with big bankrolls that do think the back door could be open with such a big spread, taking the underdog. So the public may be on one side, and some of those sharper bettors coming in on the other, just hoping that Spencer Rattler can give them some competent quarterback play.
Well, listen, they've been looking for that, as I said, ever since Carr went out, going back and forth between Haener and Rattler. So let's talk about the total here for a second, Stormy. It's sitting at 42.5, and as we mentioned, the Packers offense has been chugging along pretty well, 30+ in 4 straight games. So that means we're not expecting much on the other side of the ball from the Saints. So what is this doing to the total for the bettors? Where do they see this sort of settling in?
Yeah, you're right, Trey. We were at 42.5 for a while. This is a line that opened at 41, but now actually as we get closer to game time, we're sitting at 44. So
wow.
A lot of over money has continued to come in here, and that's public bettors and spread and public bettors and sharper bettors. The percentage is at the latest 77% of the handle, 64% of bets all on the over. So that seems to be the way of the world. And a lot of these primetime games in the past, we've talked about it being super under heavy. We've had a lot more overs this season in primetime than years past.
All right, we'll see how it all shakes out. Stormy Bonatono joining us from the trading floor in Las Vegas. We'll see what happens there. Thanks very much. It is interesting that total has gone up, right? How much do you think that is people buying on the idea that that we've talked about those numbers from Jordan Love, and then they're just going to drop the hammer on Josh Jacobs?
Both. I'm also seeing, though, that the hook is gone on the spread, so back down to 14. It was up to 14.5, so now we're seeing some of the over money come in, that spread come down, and I really do think that goes back to what me and Stormy just said. A lot of big bettors will say if there's going to be low variance, that I'm going to take 2 touchdowns. If it was a high total, okay, a blowout is very possible. As bad as the Saints may be, we've seen really bad teams keep games close or even win games outright with backup players in there. Look at the Patriots. They were 14-point underdogs against the Bills. They almost won that one, certainly covered. So it's a big number, and I think that's what's sort of changing the market this late in the game.
And look at what Cooper Rush and the Cowboys have done without Dak Prescott, including another one there. So
exactly.
Yeah, by the way, back to that Patriots game for a second. If they just don't give away that touchdown
I'm aware.
at the end. You had something on the line there, did you?
Thank you.
They only gave up 17 points on defense to that incredibly powerful Bills offense. So we'll see what happens there going forward and see how that shakes out for tonight's game. We are just getting started on this edition of the Pregame PowerUp. Lots to come. It's not even that cold in Green Bay, as we said. Temperatures in the low 30s, but how the Packers use it to their advantage and how the Saints are trying to prep for it in an interesting way. That's next. The Pregame PowerUp rolls on as we wrap up Week 16.
to the pregame power-up. A dome team heading north and playing outdoors. How's the Saints defense going to hold up? Josh Jacobs, he's hoping they go for some arm tackles. According to Next Gen Stats, he has the second most forced missed tackles this year with 89, fifth most yards after breaking the tackle with 482. And the Saints, as we know, eliminated from the playoffs, so if the D-line mails it in before the holiday, maybe, this is not breaking news, a big game for Josh Jacobs. How's he feeling down the stretch in his first year with the Packers anyhow?
I like the game just because, you know, cold games, snow games, because defenders don't really want to hit, and they kind of make them make decisions. You got to kind of make a business decision at times, and it's easier for me because I'm gonna make you have to make that decision. So yeah, I feel great. I don't have no bruises, no nothing right now. So I feel great. Just as long as I feel good, I feel like we could do whatever we could do. If I was battling with something right now, then I would probably say like be precautious. But I feel great. So.
He feels great, and he feels great about what he's running behind as well. Somewhere watching this segment, well, he'll join us in a moment, Marshall Newhouse is about to have a big old smile on his face, because look at the continuity on the offensive line for Green Bay. Entering Week 16, their starting unit has played 77.6 of the team's offensive snaps together. I cannot begin to tell you how important that is for running and pass pro if everybody is in there together. In case you're wondering where that stacks up, that's the second highest rate of any unique offensive line combination in the league, only behind Buffalo at 84.2%. So a lot to love about Josh Jacobs tonight, Claudia. How about that passing attack, though?
Yeah, Trey, Jordan Love is certainly benefiting from his O-line. Taking a look at the numbers, he doesn't specifically have a favorite target. He really spreads the love. The Packers are one of 4 teams without a skill position player, exceeding 20% target share. Jayden Reed, though, does lead the Packers skill position group at 17%. Love has thrown the deep ball, though, so no favorite target, but a favorite throw. That is the deep ball. At least 20 air yards he has thrown on 15.2% of his attempts this season. That's the second highest deep rate in the league. 2 players he looks to most often with those deep balls, Christian Watson and Jayden Reed. Those 2 guys have accumulated over 250 receiving yards on deep targets, making Green Bay one of only 2 teams, along with Minnesota, with 2 such players this season. Christian Watson up there in the top 3 for deep receiving yards since Week 9. And taking a look at tonight's matchup, Saints defense has allowed over 11 yards per completion, 28th in the league, and 672 deep pass yards. So again, an ideal matchup for the Packers. Taking a look even deeper into Jayden Reed's role on this squad, Packers pass catchers have recorded a league-high 7.1 yards after the catch per reception, with Jayden Reed leading the way. And that's also good for tonight, because the Saints defense has allowed 6.3 yards after the catch per reception, which is the 4th most, and the most yards after the catch over expected. So lots of good matchups for the Packers pass catchers tonight.
You know, Claudia, I'm so glad you mentioned Jayden Reed, because Jordan absolutely loves him this season. A 75% completion percentage when targeting Reed, and 146.2 passer rating. In case you're wondering, that's the second highest passer rating for a quarterback wide receiver duo in the Next Gen Stats era, behind only Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett's perfect season in 2018. And one of the things we talk so much, Claudia, about how we see Jordan Love sort of maturing and playing better down the stretch. You know, you go to some of the early games and through the middle part of the season, you'd say, Jordan, great, but why are you making that throw? Why are you throwing that interception? Those are the things he cuts down late in last season and again late in this season. Again, just so the numbers bear this out. He has a 31-4 touchdown to pass interception ratio after Week 11 or later, including the playoffs. He just really cleans up those mistakes that he tends to make earlier in the season.
He does, and luckily he has that O-line. Bottom 5 right now in pressure that he's facing. We've talked so much about Josh Jacobs coming out of the backfield, and I do think, I said the same thing with Josh Allen and the Bills, almost not having a number 1 wide receiver just makes it tougher for the defenses, like bettors. We don't know who to bet for his receivers. Defenders don't know who to lock down, but Jayden Reed certainly coming up for him big.
Absolutely, and again, then we get back to the idea of coaching, and we talked about this and what the Packers know how to do, especially when they're on their home field late in the season. So this offense has been clicking for the Packers as of late, a good sign from Matt LaFleur. And let's talk about the seemingly mismatch at coach tonight. It helps having Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love as your quarterbacks, but as we talked about, the Packers have been good down the stretch the last 2 seasons. And it's not a fluke in Green Bay. Look at these numbers and look at these names. These are the best records all time for coaches in December. I sense a theme here. Vince Lombardi is number 1. Matt LaFleur is number 2. And Mike Sherman, yes, Mike Sherman of all people, who coached the Packers from 6 years, from 2000 to 2005, a definite home field advantage on the frozen tundra, Claudia.
Well, Trey, it's a different story for interim head coach Darren Rizzi and the Saints. Since taking over for Dennis Allen, the Saints do have a winning record. I'll give them that.
Yep.
3 wins, 2 losses, so a little bit of a bounce with the new coach, but that's usually not the case. Going back to 2021, we've had 10 midseason coaching changes. This season, Thomas Brown and Jeff Elbrick have just 2 combined wins. Only Antonio Pierce last season and Rizzi have winning records. It makes sense, seeing how the teams are usually pretty bad, but Pierce ended up getting the full-time job, and, well, it's gotten worse, Trey.
That is correct. And now people are upset with him because they won last week, screwing up their chances to get a higher pick. He's like, look, man, I'm trying to win games. I'm trying to save my job. Yeah. He's thinking about it differently than the fans are, let's be clear. I'm not sure Rizzi's going to make it to the end of the season above 500. He and his coaching staff are trying some new things. At least we just talked about some of those things. The home field advantage for the Packers in December. The Saints are at least trying to do something about it. Spencer Rattler, who gets the go tonight, said that the quarterback coach tried something unique. Andrew Janocko took us into the cafeteria freezer, Rattler said, where it was like 10 degrees, and we're just going through the whole script in there. So just doing that helped a lot. And, you know, people say, why would you do that? That's dumb. It's not, actually, all right? Like,
it's not that cold, though.
Right, but when you're from New Orleans and 55 is cold, okay.
10, what, you want to give your quarterback frostbite before you head into a game? Come on.
I mean, we had that Dolphins-Chiefs game in the playoffs last year when it was like, wind chill was like minus 30 or something.
I'm curious to hear from a player if that is dramatic, because it feels dramatic to me.
Well, then let's go to a player. Ladies and gentlemen, longtime NFL offensive lineman Marshall Newhouse joins us. Marshall, we know you played a lot of games in cold weather, whether it was in Green Bay, whether it was in New York or up in New England. How do you sort of mentally get yourself to prepare for what you know it's going to be a not enjoyable evening?
Yeah, there's a lot of mental prep that goes into this, but I'm sitting here stuck on picturing the Saints quarterbacks going through their opening game script next to some frozen chicken nuggets. So it does seem a little crazy. But listen, I get people are doing what they think will work, but ultimately, you know, with the ball handling, I mean, the Packers, centers and quarterbacks, they would freeze footballs. They'd have frozen balls dunked in the ice. And so there's just levels to it. But I think ultimately it's just mental. You have to prepare yourself that it's just going to suck. Really, can you get your mind ready for it to just not be fun? Josh Jacobs alluded to it earlier. There are people that's going to turn it down. I called it being a hammer on the nail. I like hitting and being more aggressive because you saw some guys just didn't want to handle that. And if you go do that over the course of the game, generally teams that are out of it and that are from warmer climates don't know how to handle that for a longer period of time.
You got to get the scuba suits like Tom Brady, right? You had Lambeau as your home field. You played in New England. You played in New York, so you know cold weather. There's something different about Lambeau Field, though, and the Packers playing really well in general down the stretch here, now a big favorite at home. What is it about Lambeau Field that makes it so special, Marshall?
I don't know what it is other than there's like a mystique to it. I mean, there's really so much history and tradition. The fans really, go to another level. It's just an outdoor feeling and a place that, a lot of people deem football Mecca. And there's an aura that other players haven't been used to. And then ultimately the Packers, we've been good later in the season. These teams come in, and if there's not a lot on the line, maybe their focus is on where they're going in Mexico and not trying to be in Wisconsin in the moment. And so the team knows how to rally in those moments. It helps having now the third stud quarterback in a row to lead the team, and everyone else galvanizes around that. So we like to run the ball, and the defense, steps things up a little bit. So it's just a different vibe in Lambeau late in the season.
All right, Marshall, I was really thinking about you when I talked about the continuity of the offensive line. And I don't think people truly understand how tied together sometimes an offensive line unit is. You go back to one of the greatest lines in the history of the NFL, the Great Wall of Dallas, they called it. When they got together for the first year, Troy was getting sacked left and right. Yet the same 5 guys essentially later on became one of the greatest units we've ever seen. How important is that continuity for you guys to be connected, knowing where those blitz pickups are coming from and what your responsibilities are?
It's tremendously important. Guys, have to speak without speaking. There's a lot of unsaid things from a tackle to a guard and a guard to a center in pass protection and in the run game. And so the less you have to say overtly to a guy who maybe doesn't have as much experience, the more you can get done, the better you can protect Jordan Love, the better you can open holes for Josh Jacobs. And Elton Jenkins, being the older guy, the most highly paid guy, just says to their evaluation and development process, they seemingly develop and have another guy ready to go. It's been now 2 years that we haven't heard the name David Bakhtiari, who I think is one of the all-time great tackles, but they just replaced him, have moved forward and created continuity in a unit and led them to be a strength, the top 10 line absolutely in the league protecting Jordan Love.
Yeah, O-line one of the best, as you said, in the NFL. They have a great young quarterback in Jordan Love, just, of course, on his second year. He has played well late in his career, though. I talked about how well the Packers have done going back in years in history at home. They also have a great head coach in Matt LaFleur, which we just talked about some of the stats there. When you look at the coach-quarterback situation, is it, the chicken or the egg? Is it the coach propelling Jordan Love forward? Is it the other way around? How do you see it?
Well, Matt LaFleur would say he would like a guy with the talent and the mental processing of a Jordan Love, but he absolutely now has gone from an Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love and seen success with both guys. So I think the coach in this situation specifically has put his quarterbacks in the best position to succeed. I think Aaron Rodgers would look back on his time there and maybe wanted to trust LaFleur a little more now that he's seeing how successful things can be. Jordan Love seems to have bought into that trust, and now he's excelling and taking over the wheel a little bit. But the beginning starts with the way LaFleur puts him in a position to succeed, the way he kind of tapered him into the offense, and the control he has now of Jordan Love being a guy you're like, oh, he can go win you a game. People are talking about the Packers as a sneaky Super Bowl pick just because of the way that Jordan Love has matured and progressed in the Matt LaFleur system.
Yeah, the only team they've lost to in the last couple of months has been a couple of games to the Detroit Lions, so they've been playing very, very well. On the other side, you have the Saints. We've talked about the injuries. They don't have their Swiss Army player, Taysom Hill. He's gone. Alvin Kamara's not there. How can they possibly find enough production from these other players to make this a competitive game when we talk about how well the Packers are playing?
Well, I think they're going to allow Spencer Rattler to just shorten the game, and they do it by not allowing him to just throw all over the place. It's harder to throw in the cold, especially if you're not used to it, despite the freezer operation that they went through. And they're going to probably run the ball with some unsung guys, but to shorten the game, that's their best shot, especially being 2 touchdown underdogs and a team that's kind of going to the playoffs and you're on your way out. And so you've got to just limit the opportunities for them to be explosive and give yourself a chance to be in it at the end of the game.
Marshall, I said earlier in the show and earlier this season, it seems like it would be easier when you don't have a clear-cut number 1 target because it makes it a little bit tougher for defenses to try and scheme around you. Is that just me sitting on my couch watching and assuming? Tell me from a player's perspective, does that make it easier for a quarterback, or in some situations do you think it's harder?
Well, listen, I think most quarterbacks would want a dog that they can throw to in must-have situations. But the way they process through the field, knowing that whoever's open is getting the ball, that lets the defense not key in on any one particular guy. And Jordan Love just has to go through his progression. And if someone's there, he takes it. And then now when you get down into these tighter games in the playoffs in the division, you want a guy who you can depend on. But still, if he goes through his progression, there's 4 or 5 guys, including the tight end Tucker Kraft, on any given play that will be open and can make a play.
All right, Marshall, thanks. Hang in there, and we'll get back to you a little bit later on this show. We'll see what's happening as we continue to talk about other topics throughout the league. Marshall Newhouse joining us as we're just getting started here on the Pregame PowerUp. Lots more coming here. It was a Christmas miracle, except it wasn't for anybody that knew anything about Patrick Mahomes' ankles. What to make about how Patrick played and what to expect on Christmas Day on short rest, that's ahead.
I think it was the second practice. The first practice was still kind of iffy, but then the second practice and being able to move a little bit and do some of the under center stuff, I knew I was going to have a good chance. And so I was able to move enough in the movements. We could go under center and run the football, so I felt confident that the O-line was going to protect me, which they did a great job today, and I could make some throws. I felt like I was ahead of there. I mean, that one, it kind of just hurt just the walk in general, whereas now I can kind of move around walking and stuff like that. And now it's just trying to get it even better for this next game. I mean, we're playing a good football team and a great defense, and they're going to be getting after it. So trying to get in a better spot so I can utilize my mobility and still be able to work within the pocket and outside the pocket as well.
Well, I am shocked that Patrick Mahomes was able to play on Saturday with that high ankle sprain. So much angst and pearl clutching about would he be able to play. I'm like, do you not know who this guy is? Have you not seen this from him before? A 15-yard touchdown, which, by the way, the longest touchdown run of his career, and 260 yards, a touchdown pass, no interceptions. So let's do the rest thing, shall we? Because they played on Saturday, they're going to play on Wednesday, which means it's basically 3 days rest. Well, look at the numbers. In his career, 3 days rest, pretty good. Team's 4-1. He completes 71% of his passes, about 254 passing yards, 9 touchdowns versus 2 interceptions. 4 days rest, 1-0 in that situation, 56% completion percentage, 306 yards passing, 1 TD, no interceptions. And on 5 days rest, 9-2. All these numbers are basically a fancy way of saying the rest isn't an issue for Patrick Mahomes. And it really, look, I get it. When you hear high ankle sprain, people go, but you have to put everything in its proper context. He said, and Andy Reid said after the game in Cleveland, this wasn't as bad as the high ankle sprain that he suffered in the divisional round against the Jags in 2022. He went into the AFC Championship game with no injury designation, threw for over 300 yards, a couple of touchdowns, no interceptions. So this is what he does.
I do think the offensive line issue was sort of the concern for a lot of people because, of course, you throw your injured quarterback in there, the most valuable player not only of a team but really in the NFL, when we're talking Patrick Mahomes. But just 1 sack over the last 2 games, and they faced 2 of the best pass rushes in the Texans and Cleveland versus 13 the prior 3. So I think a lot of people looked at that. He got sacked 13 times in 3 games. Then he hurts the ankle. Maybe it's a worry, but he was clearly fine out there, and the O-line held up.
I'm glad you brought that up, and we'll get back to Marshall on this a little bit later. You cannot stress enough what the Chiefs were able to do, taking their all-pro left guard, Joe Thuney, whom a lot of people in New England know from his time with the Patriots, and moving him out to left tackle. Okay, normally what happens is you go inside because you can't play outside. Let's be honest about it, okay? You have to be more athletic and be able to move a lot faster to play tackle than you do guard in the NFL. For Thuney to go out there, and then, by the way, the Chiefs have confidence in their backup guard in Caliendo to maintain that status quo. That, I think, that's brilliant coaching in my mind. We don't have the bodies that we want to fix the problem, so how can we make the problem less of a problem? Let's just move this guy out here. And Thuney has been unbelievable. I talked to Mitchell Schwartz, who was a longtime tackle for the Chiefs, and he said what he's doing is really hard late in the season and really impressive.
Yeah. Quarterback, coach, everything's coming into place. You get your running back in Pacheco. Hollywood Brown looks good. It's just not fair. But let's talk about moving ahead to Wednesday, because the Chiefs are now 3-point favorites, and the public, to no surprise, Trey, they're backing them. The game opened as just a 1-point game, moved to 2.5 after the Chiefs win, the Steelers lose, and now it's up to that key number of 3. A rough one for the Steelers on Saturday as the Ravens pulled away late in the 3rd. Marlon Humphrey's pick 6 seals the deal early in the 4th. Another 3-touchdown performance for Lamar Jackson. Here's John Harbaugh on Jackson's performance.
Clutch throws, especially against man, tight coverage, guys running, him dotting people on the run and man coverage. I thought Lamar was fantastic, and that's no little bit of pressure. I mean, our guys did a good job up front, but Lamar he's under pressure against this group of rushes the passer. Always they're going to give you pressure. He stood in there and made some throws, man. He always does.
Already career highs in completion percentage, passer rating, and passing yards and touchdowns. And still, just plus 400 to win MVP. That is second to Josh Allen, but Josh Allen's minus 550, so it's really a big jump. The Ravens take on the Texans this week, Trey.
Yep.
And moving to Wednesday, Ravens-Texans open as Ravens 2-point favorite, move to 5.5 right now. The public also riding with the Ravens as of now, 92% of the bets on the Ravens to cover.
Yeah, and look, this was really impressive because the one thing that you could say in Lamar Jackson's potential MVP season was, yeah, but the Steelers still know how to deal with him. You look at his numbers against the Steelers, they're significantly worse than any other team in the NFL. I think his passer rating over his career is 66 out of 158 against the Steelers. So for him to sort of right that ship and get that thing going, that was super, super impressive. The Steelers, on the other hand, they're leaking a little oil here, okay? Yeah. They have lost 3 of their last 5. Now, they now find themselves tied with the Ravens for that race for the 3 seed, which is going to be the AFC North crown. And the Ravens finish up with that depleted Houston squad, as we talked about. Tank Dell is gone for the year. Not only did he tear his ACL, it dislocated his kneecap. And then Jimmy Ward, one of their best corners, has an injured foot. He's out for the year as well. And the Ravens finish with Houston, and then they take on the Browns. Meanwhile, the Steelers have to play the Chiefs and then a red-hot Cincinnati team who may or may not be fighting for their playoff lives. So this is a much more difficult task for Pittsburgh to try and lock down this AFC North crown.
And on the Texans for this next matchup for the Ravens, as you said, no Tank Dell now, of course, on top of no Steph Diggs. So you have Nico Collins, John Mechie, Robert Woods. That wasn't enough, though. They went out to pick up Deontay Johnson, who you might remember was last with the Ravens, and decided not to go into the game. They said, hey, man, we need you. He said, nah, I'm good.
Well, the funny thing about that is a lot of times when you pick up some player like that, you're like, give us some intel about what. I'm sure Deontay goes, I don't care. I didn't really have any when I was there. They didn't play me. So, I mean, the kid, it's kind of sad because he's a good kid. He has talent.
I know.
He has talent. Yeah. He just has not been able to sort of figure out how to apply that to his craft.
Maybe he'll like this team and want to play. We'll see. Let's go back to tonight's matchup. Updated splits for the game. Public still all over the Packers as a big favorite. And like we talked about earlier, heavy betting on Kendre Miller's overs. We're seeing 52.5 rush yards it's set at right now. For more on tonight's liability, we go to our friend, Captain Book.
'Twas 2 nights before Christmas when all through the house only nibbles on the under, bets the size of a mouse. Player props were posted by the book with care, in hopes Carr and Kamara soon would be there. The public was gleeful, all smug with their bets, as vision of parlay wins danced in their heads. And Mama in her hoodie and I in my cap had just settled our action for a long winter's nap. When out on the app there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my seat to see what was the matter. Away to the trade floor I flew like a flash, stared at the board and bets came in fast. Then what to my wondering eyes did appear? A 6-figure parlay had my pulse in high gear. With correlations included, I knew in my heart it was clearly a wise guy. The wager was smart. A review of the action brought calm to my head. The Pack is laying 2 touchdowns, there's nothing to dread. Whose bets will be wrong and whose will be right? No matter the outcome, let's all have a great night.
Well done. Well done,
Bravo.
right? That's 2 in a row that Captain Book has named.
You know he put a lot of work into that. So Captain Book, great job.
Well, that's like what you say. Hey, but I appreciate the effort. But he did a good job. That was a good job. You know who else does a good job for us? Marshall Newhouse. Let's go back to Marshall. Marshall, it did kind of make me chuckle. I heard people that I really respect. I heard someone who I will not name because I have too much respect for him to name him at this point, saying that the Chiefs should shut down Patrick Mahomes till the playoffs. I was like, are you kidding me? He played well, but it is going to be a short week. What do you expect to see out of him against a Steelers team that can bring pressure?
Yeah, listen, he knows how to navigate this injury, specifically with his ankles and his own preparation. Even Andy Reid, they have a different mentality of like, if I'm good, I'm going to go. This isn't a holding things back type of group. You don't win multiple championships dealing with that. So I think they're going to attack the Steelers. I think it'll be very, very worried of TJ Watt, obviously. But they've got a lot on the line. They're keeping pace with the Bills. Bills had a little stumbly game against the Pats, but they understand what's at stake with the first round bye. They absolutely see a team that's kind of, there's blood in the water with the Steelers. The Steelers team that was going to be formidable with Russ Wilson, I think they still are, but they've kind of lost a little bit of their momentum. George Pickens might not be available, and so we'll see who has if they have enough to keep up with Kansas City, because Kansas City, they're just okay doing it in this seemingly to us boring way, just methodical way, where they're holding the ball time possession wise for almost the most in the league. They're converting first downs at the highest clip in the league, and they're just keeping your offense off the field and squeezing you and suffocating you for the entire game. And so, Mike Tomlin is a guy I think appreciates that kind of style and might kind of play that a little bit himself, but he's also got to keep up with Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, look, 20 touchdown drives of at least 10 plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. That leads the league. But I just want to throw this scenario out for you real quick. Let's say they do win. That wraps up the number 1 seed. Considering you have Chris Jones with a calf strain, Travis Kelce, who's an older player, Joe Tooney, who's an older player, Mahomes with the ankle. How much of a benefit would it be if on Christmas Day they could wrap this thing up and essentially almost have 3 weeks to get everybody healthy before they would have to play a playoff game?
Well, I can see it now. They wrap it up, and some guys take off, and then the first game they play, rest versus rust.
Yeah.
And so there's always a balance of a guy that you trust in Mahomes and Kelce and Chris Jones, and then all the other guys where you're like, hey, we are still in this. You still have to stay sharp. This is more important than even the games that you had to win to get here. And so I understand them wanting to rest them. I don't think Pat's going to want the rest, but they'll find a way to do it in their own way where they'll still be ready, assuming they win, for their first matchup of the playoffs. And so they get the benefit of the doubt of figuring this out and being ready to go.
I get why everybody's so nervous. He, of course, the MVP for that Chiefs squad. Let's have that conversation. We just saw Lamar Jackson come off another 3-touchdown game. I just listed all of the career stats for him this season. Now, of course, he has some help out of the backfield with Derrick Henry, while Josh Allen's kind of doing it all on his own. So as far as the odds go, big difference, minus 550 to plus 400. Where do you put Lamar Jackson, though, in your MVP rankings, Marshall?
He's 2. I felt like Josh Allen had this about 2 months ago, and if he just kept putting these games together, he's just doing so much of the work for this offense and for this team. And as good as a season Lamar Jackson is having, the stumble against the Steelers, now he's kind of vindicated himself, but Josh Allen has just kept an unbelievable pace of just playmaking and kind of superhero ability. And listen, at the MVP, it's going to seem always to be a quarterback award, and I think this year it goes to Josh Allen.
All right, let's talk about the Texans. We just updated everybody that Tank Dell is out for the year. Jimmy Ward's out for the year. They've had a lot of injuries on the offensive line. The offense is struggling a little bit. What is your level of concern about this Texans team as they are going to be in the postseason and play a home game as winners of the AFC South?
Yeah, a lot of concern. They have benefited from just a very, very weak division. Otherwise, if any of these other teams could challenge them, I wouldn't have put a lot of trust in them. C.J. Stroud has taken a step back, even with the protection issues. He is not the same guy we saw his rookie year. And with another weapon out at wide receiver, there's even one less guy to throw to. Dalton Schultz hasn't taken a step as a tight end that they signed in free agency. And yeah, the offensive line ultimately is just going to dictate how this offense goes, and it has not gone well, and it hasn't improved. We've been talking about this now for 6-7 weeks,
right,
and it has not improved. They're still falling around his ankles, crushing his drop back protection, and then Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon has not had the same kind of holes in production at the running back position. So this team doesn't have the fire that I thought they had, and they're holding on for dear life.
I want to go to the NFC as we're talking about injuries galore. Jalen Hurts came out in that first quarter over the weekend against Washington. They end up losing. He's in concussion protocol. How worried should Philly fans be heading into Week 17 against the Cowboys?
Listen, if Kenny Pickett's the guy you got to go to war with, I'd be a little worried. It helps having the offensive line and Saquon Barkley, but we've seen Kenny Two Gloves go out there, and I don't know if he has enough. There's a reason Pittsburgh let him go. We've seen he could do some things, but he's just not the guy that Jalen Hurts is. And, I think Jalen Hurts is probably feeling a little bit a kind of way of all the doubt that's been thrown his way. But they need him. He presents a level of calmness and leadership and production that they sorely miss, and they're a complete team with him.
Yeah, they certainly are. And then, of course, Kenny Pickett also was banged up in that game, so we'll see what happens going forward. Marshall, as always, we appreciate it, my friend. Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you on the other side, okay?
Thanks, guys. Merry Christmas.
All right, Marshall Newhouse with us as we continue here in the pregame power-up. Back with next-gen Cats and the data dump, how the Packers may be able to control the air tonight on both sides of the ball. Got you on the pump fake.
Trey and Claudia with you back on the pregame power-up, and so is our next Gen Cat.
What do we got?
What do we got?
Where's the Emmy? I still haven't seen
First
the Emmy.
touchdown.
There it is. There it is.
We could be friends, Trey.
We could
Hi,
be.
Claw. Okay, kitty cat. What do we got?
She
First
wanted the
touchdown.
Emmy. She wanted the Emmy.
Condre
Miller?
Condre Miller. Wow.
Miller. There we go.
Feeling frisky. Miller for the first touchdown at 12-1. Let's take a look at the first touchdown scores today. Josh Jacobs leading the way. 5 Packers on the board until we get to Miller. Then the Saints' next player on the odds, defense and special teams. So, not a lot of love for the Saints all around. Sort of the theme of today's pregame power-up.
That's true.
And it translates to anytime touchdown scores. Here are the most bet scores tonight. Bettors like Josh Jacobs, despite the juice, and bettors jumping over Christian Watson at plus 185 in favor of better odds, Trey.
All right, Claudia, you know how we do this. We can't fit everything we want into this tight 60-minute show, so we do this thing at the end where we unload everything we got. It's called the data dump. Look, we know the Packers are good, and their losses have come against the best 3 teams in the NFC. So while we might question how they stack up against the best of the best, their 4 losses this year to the Eagles, Vikings, and twice to the Lions puts them in the top 3 all-time of highest strength of losses in a single season. I feel like I'm doing the college football playoff committee stuff right now. Strength of losses here, strength of wins. But anyway, these are the best strength of losses we've ever seen all time. And some of them, I mean, who can forget the 1929 Frankfurt Yellow Jackets?
Never forget.
Or the 1926 Duluth Eskimos. But the 2014 Green Bays are tucked in there right in between the 1941 Detroit Lions and the 1926 New York Giants.
Well, some unfortunate news for the Packers. Jaire Alexander was expected to play, but it's official. He will not be playing out with a knee despite being a full participant at practice over the last 2 days. On the field, the Packers' pass defense gives up just a 61% completion percentage and holds opponents to a 77.5 passer rating. When he's off the field, 72% completion percentage and a 96.9 passer rating.
Well, something that may bode well for Spencer Rattler as he tries to become the first non-Carr quarterback for the Saints to win a game, Alexander being out. Because Rattler is only 3 of 13 on deep passes of 20 or more air yards. The Saints have the 9th lowest catch rate on deep targets in the league. So maybe without Alexander out there, those numbers can improve for Spencer Rattler and keep the Saints in the game.
And that's just the opposite, as I talked about with Next Gen Stats and Jordan Love and the Packers. They love and they're very effective with that deep ball. On the other side, we talked about Jaden Reed's yards after the catch as well. But Tucker Kraft, who Marshall mentioned, their tight end, leading the NFL in yards after the catch per reception for all tight ends and wide receivers. 9.3 yards after the catch per reception, either wide open or making guys miss. Who's to say? But he does it well, Trey.
Yeah, listen, this Packers team could actually end up 13-4, and we might have 3 teams in the NFC North with at least 13 wins, and 2 of them are going to be wild cards. It's absolutely crazy. It's an absolutely crazy tough division this year, so we'll see how it shakes out tonight. Last show for us before Christmas.
Yes.
What's the big Bellafotto Christmas tradition besides just eating Italian food?
Oh, well, eating Italian food, drinking good wine, just hanging out with the fam, you know. Oh, how about the Wingo?
That sounds like a holiday tradition perfection.
Great.
We sit around and watch some good holiday movies and get set. We're going to enjoy some football tonight. Is there any part of you that's leaning any way towards the New Orleans Saints tonight?
Nothing on paper makes sense. It's just that 14-point spread, which is sort of tempting me. I might live bet it if the Saints can somehow keep it close. That number comes down on the Packers. I feel a lot safer betting the Packers, just not 14.
14 is a big number.
It is.
It's a big number. But again, 30-plus points in 4 straight games. Only the Bills had a longer streak of 8 this season. Hey, we hope you enjoyed the show. More importantly, we hope you and yours have a very safe and happy Christmas and holiday season. We'll be back on Thursday on the other side of Santa's big day. But for Claudia Bellafotto, Stormy Bonatoni, Marshall Newhouse, and everybody that helps put this little show together we call the Pregame Power Up, we thank you for watching. Enjoy the game tonight, and have a great Christmas, everybody.